Dana Abercrombie, the Koalition. Thank you so much for speaking to me. I wanted to talk about this last episode that we saw. It was so incredibly heartbreaking what Covey went through. And so I really wanted to know, it started out with Covey wanting to detach herself from her pregnancy and from the child. And then we kind of saw at the very end tail that changed. I was wondering, was that always just that was innate within Covey in terms of she always felt something with the baby? But it wasn't until Eleanor's conversation that she realized that maybe she made a mistake.
Um, yeah, I definitely think that was always the plan to have that kind of um arch with her story in this episode. I mean, it was really hard for her to even, come to terms with the fact that she has this child born from something the way that it was born. And she, I think, was trying to disassociate from the trauma that she experienced, and in doing so was trying to disconnect from this child. But then towards the end of the episode, it's hard for her to not feel something for her baby, for her daughter.
Sorry. I was really wondering, what was really interesting was, with Covey and her experiences of being a mother, that didn't give her sympathy towards her mother because she never came.
Yeah, I definitely think that her having Matilda really changed her perspective on her mother and her relationship with her mother. I think for Covey, the the relationship with her mother and what happened with her mother is a big mystery for her. She doesn't really
Mhm.
know what happened or what happened to her mother, why she doesn't speak to her. And so I don't think it's necessarily something of contempt or anger, but just confusion and wanting to know why. Was it something wrong with me? Did I do something wrong? And then, once she has this child, it's the understanding that this is the strongest love that exists. And there has to have been something keeping her mother from her because she couldn't imagine living her life without her child.
Right. There was also an interesting conversation that was made of how Covey wants to be saved throughout the show, and how in every predicament she was waiting for someone to save her. And so I was wondering, is that saving part because she did not have that full, you would say, embrace of the family? It was detached. She was really on her own. So
Mhm.
why, in terms of wanting to be saved as opposed to saving herself?
I think it's wanting to be saved just because she has been at the mercy of so many people over her
Mhm.
journey, and she's kind of realized, I guess, at this point that her life isn't in her own hands. Um she isn't in control of her own life. Her future is at the hands of either her father or the other adults in her life that are continuously failing her. And I think once she's come to terms with that, she isn't even thinking about what she can do for herself. It's more like praying or hoping that some being, someone out there will come and, find something for her. I mean, even when she, in this episode finds the nun in the church, she's hoping that this nun will save her, that God will save her, someone will save her, because she doesn't believe that she's in control of her own destiny anymore.
Right. The episode kind of opens up with, the more you're going without being seen, the more you disappear. And so I was wondering, in the home, she really didn't make a fuss with anything until later on. Did she felt that she was disappearing and losing herself by being quiet, not speaking up? And it wasn't until the very end that you said, "I'm here, I exist."
100%. I mean, she changes her name, she changes her identity, and in being someone else, she's losing who she is. And I think what's really beautiful about the show is that we see that she, didn't completely lose that. And when we find Eleanor as an older woman, we see that same fire that was inside Covey when she was in Jamaica. And it's nice to know that Eleanor kind of got her happy ending, and especially when she reunites with Gibbs, that fire is reignited in a way.
Right. Also, the letter that is kind of composed and given to her daughter, she realizes where she came from, what really happened. In terms of giving her closure, was it to give the character Kobe closure as well?
I think so, of course. I mean, I, I, I can only put myself in those shoes and wonder, what I would do in that situation. And I would never want my child to think that I gave them up or that I didn't want them. And so I think that was a big thing of closure for her, is to believe in her heart that she did everything that she could to let Mabel know that she wanted her, that she was wanted, and that she was loved.
Does she ever truly, do you believe, get not get over, but is able to release that burden? Even in this episode, how it's as trying and horrible as it is, and she's wandering the streets looking for her child, is there some form of release in terms of knowing that your child is not with you, but it could be with someone who's doing much more successful and can raise Mabel better?
Um, I really think it depends on how you look at it. I
Mm-hmm.
think you could say that she did, but I think when you go through traumatic things like that and things that are not really tied up or left open, you never really get over it and you carry it for the rest of your life. And I think that's what Eleanor did, and that's why she left these tapes, is because she's hoping that her children can put together the pieces that she was never able to put together.
Right. In this episode, I truly wondered, does Covey view the nuns as villains?
Um, I mean, definitely not at the beginning of the episode. I mean,
Right.
that's a really good question, because I think she really turns to the nuns as a sort of last resort because she has no one and nothing. And part of the reason that she would trust a stranger is just because she's so vulnerable and she has nobody to cry to, nobody to turn to. And so when this woman shows up and kind of provides warmth and shelter for her, she just takes it because she doesn't know what else to do. And I think by the end of it, she doesn't really even have time to think of the nuns as villains because she's blaming herself and thinking, what if I hadn't signed those papers, or what could I have done differently, or if I had snuck out at this time instead, or whenever. And it's not even about anyone else. It's just about her, and it's about Mabel, and wishing that she could have done anything or something different to have her child with her.
Right. And lastly, with this, I wouldn't say that it's naive, that she's operating on in naivety, but I was wondering, does this lesson that she has learned kind of open her world and change her perspective of how she views people? That, oh, it can be loving and embraceful, but also watch out.
Yeah, I don't think you can go through that kind of trauma and just go back to trusting people.
Right.
Um, go back to having those kinds of relationships. I mean, even, as she has children, she's passed down generational trauma to Byron and Benny,
Mhm.
and we can see it in their adult lives. So I think that's the kind of thing that has definitely affected everyone's life, just from what's happened to Covey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for speaking to me. Phenomenal episode, phenomenal job.
Thank you so much.